So welcome everyone to today's webinar, and my name is Harrison, and I am a fellow at the CGU's Cafe Center, the Center for Academic and Faculty Excellence. And today I'm going to talk about how to use AI ethically in research and writing. And I'm highlighting the word ethically here, since that's going to be the focus of today's session. Before I start, is everyone able to see the screen? See the screen I'm sharing perfectly? Okay, great. Okay, so this is actually going to be the third webinar that Cafe have hosted on AI. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the previous two, I highly recommend it. Those one of them is hosted by my colleague Violet and is on AI and sustainability issues. And the other one is by Dr. Gloria, where she dive deeper into the AI and in higher education. Okay, so here's an overview of today's content. We'll start up with warm-up activities to get like a word cloud and a quiz activity, and then we'll do an introduction to some definitions of AI and as well as some of the promises it brings to us. And then I'll move on to talk about the major part, which is the ethical challenges of AI, focusing on 6 major aspects. And then I'll talk about some of the best practices to combat those ethical challenges. And then I will have some times for questions at the end. So right now, you should be able to see 2 links in a chat. The first link is, so during the session, submit your question here, and we'll go through each question at the end. I'll just post I'll repeat the message here in case anybody doesn't see it now. So the message has 2 links. The first is a link to the app I'll be using throughout the presentation. It's called Slido. So during the session, if you have any questions, and you can submit your questions on the app, and at the very end of the presentation, I'll designate some time to answer everybody's questions systematically. But also the Slido app is also going to be the app we're using for the warm-up activity. So I recommend click into the link now. The second link is a link to the Google Slides that has the same content of the slides I'll be using today. So I put it up there just so because I have included some resources, some links to some of the AI contents I'll be talking about. So in case you're interested, you can go to the Google Slides to access those links and resources. Okay, so I'll just start with like quick activities on just to get a sense of how people have used AI in their own research and writing process. So you can go to the link or scan the QR code. This is like this is a word cloud, so you can type in your answers and it'll show up on the screen. So we have initiate the literature review for topic, editing my verbiage to make it sound better, data analysis, write up, organize paragraphs and rewrite to avoid repetitions, quick ways to summarize hefty materials, so another literature review, brainstorming and editing, that's a good one. Integration, I'd like to know more about what that means. First draft, cohesive thoughts, help. finding information, synthesis, say and write, vetting ideas, some stats coding, analysis. Yeah, this is great. So as it's popping, you can see the variety of ways that graduate students and um, um, are using AI, and it's really amazing that AI can help us in so many a variety of different ways. So I'm gonna you can keep answering the questions and it will show up keep showing up here. But I'm gonna move on to our second activity, which is a quiz activity. So you can join the quiz here. You'll be asked to enter a username or a nickname. You can stay anonymous, but this is going to be for tracking the leaderboard. So I'm going to present a list of 3 quizzes, and you'll be graded by how long it takes for you to choose the correct answer. So it's both the correctness and the quickness of your answer. I'll give a couple more seconds for folks to join. Ten more seconds. Okay. Everyone ready? Get started. The first question is an estimate of how many global students are using AI in their studies. Okay, we have a split between 51% and 86%. Actually, quite an even split. So the correct answer is 86. But we can see that people are generally believing that, like, over than 50% of students are using AI in their studies. Okay, so if you haven't joined, you can still have the chance to scan the QR code or go to the links. You'll still be able to join now. Okay, moving on to our second question. That's the leaderboard. Okay, we have 51%, 15, and 86. So this question asks, what's the percentage of students are concerned with AI hallucinations? And yeah, most people are correct in that around 51% of students are concerned with the AI hallucination issue. See the leaderboard again. Um, and next question will be our last question. So this is your chance if you want to climb the leaderboard. Okay, the last question is, how many percent of students are concerned with the environmental impact of AI tools? And this is the most diverse range of answers we see. The correct answer is 15%, but most people were able to get it right. So if you're interested, those stats are coming from different sources. If you want to know what the sources are, you can go to the Google Slides, and in the notes, you'll see the links to where the stats are coming from. We also have a great question in the chat. What is AI hallucination? Um, so this is something that we will talk about later in the presentation as well. But basically, AI hallucination is when AI generate a wrong output, but make it sound like it's correct. Okay, so we have a winner here. Actually, the only person that got all of the three answers correct. So congratulations. Um, yeah, so and the number of students concerned with the environmental impacts of AI is actually the hardest question, with only 42% of the people getting it right. So moving on to our introduction, I just want to lay out some of the key terms. First of all, what is AI, right? What we're talking about when we're talking about AI. So AI, or artificial intelligence, are computer systems that can perform tasks in a way that mimics human intelligence. So the key word here is that the key takeaway here is that AI systems are computer systems that are supposed to think, act, and solve problems the way that are similar to human. And I think more AI have the concept of AI have long existed. So if we think about there are many softwares and applications that think like human. But I think when we're talking about AI nowadays, or when I refer to AI in this webinar, I think most of us are thinking about specifically Gen AI or generative AI. So these are AI models that generate novel content in response to our prompts. And the more the AIs that we're all probably familiar with, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, those are a specific type of generative AI called the LLMs, or large language models. Those are AI models that understand and generate human-like text by training on large data sets. So there are different applications of AI, right? So if you think about it, the Google search engine is a type of AI. The recommendation system from YouTube, Amazon, and Netflix are AI system as well. They will be able to recommend content, products based on the things you've seen in the past. So it's like a friend recommending your different things to try to watch. Virtual assistant on your phone, such as Siri and Alexa, can be considered as AI as well. And so does autonomous vehicles as well as robotics. But the specific type of AI that we're more familiar with are ChatGPT, Gemini. Those are chatbots, which are applications of the large language models. So I just want to spend some time, like quickly talk about the promises of AI, right? So we all know that AI can have a lot of benefits on our society. And I really like this article written by Dario that kind of gave an overview of the 5 most promising areas that he sees as the most promising areas for AI to benefit our human society. So these are biology and health, neuroscience, economic development and poverty, peace and governance, and lastly, work and meaning. So for biology and health, that AI can help to develop vaccines, treatments, gene therapies. It may be able to help us to eliminate most of our existing disease. And people in the future may have control over their appearances, weight, fertility, and even lifespan. It is predicted that human lifespan could be doubled with the help of AI. AI could also assist in neuroscience to help us to improve mental health treatment, to help us gain a deeper understanding of brain functioning, as well as to enhance some baseline mental functioning, such as better memory capacity, better attention focus, and etc. AI could also be used to kind of help with economic development. to help countries to raise their living standards globally, as well as to reduce the income level between countries. In terms of peaceful governance, AI could help to improve governance, decision making, to reduce bias in legal system, which is really crucial. And it can also help to improve the transparency and citizen access to government service. And lastly, with work and meaning, nowadays with AI being able to handle more of the routine type of work, it may give human more access, more opportunity to pursue their meaning, to creative work or higher work that's involving more of their personal purpose. And I included 3 dots at the end of the list because I think the promise of AI is endless, right? This is just a short list of 5 things, but with the help of AI, we can achieve so much more. However, ever since the day AI was introduced, or ever since the day ChatGPT came out, there has been voices of concerns, voices of doubts, voices, and I think those are all valid concerns because if you realize how powerful AI tool is, right, with the right intention, it can become extremely beneficial for our society. However, if someone approaches AI without ethics, it could suddenly become extremely harmful and even dangerous for human. And that's why I think the heart of today's webinar is going to get you to think about the different ethical challenges of AI and how to deal with them. And so here and in reality, there could be a numerous ethical challenges that existed with regard to AI. But in this webinar, I want to focus on these 6 different aspects. So issues on AI hallucination, authorship, bias, transparency, environmental sustainability, as well as data privacy. I see the reason I chose these 6 aspects to focus on today is because I think they're probably mostly general relevant, as well as to our topic on research and writing. Those are probably issues that a lot of students have thought about or may be important to their own research and writing process. But yeah, like I said, there could be a lot of other issues, and as you're thinking about those issues, I encourage you to think about in your own practices what kind of ethical issues you have encountered that we have not talked about covering here. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes to talk about each one of the issues in detail, starting with the issue of AI hallucination. So to repeat, AI hallucination is a problem that AI can produce wrong output that could sound appealing and even convincing to us, right? So this is here on the screen, you can see that I have this example that I have interacted with my ChatGPT. So I asked the question, does KGI have undergrads? And the answer I get is yes. Keck Graduate Institute, despite the graduate in its name, does have undergraduate programs now. And I'll skip the second paragraph, but jump to the evidence it provides. So the undergrad programs, these include first, undergraduate majors through partnership with other Claremont colleges, especially the Keck Science Department. So on the first glance, this answer, the evidence it provides sounds really promising, right? Is saying that it does have undergraduate program because through the partnership with other Claremont colleges through this Keck Science Department. But upon researching on what the Keck Science Department actually is, first of all, when I go to the KGI website, I don't see a single mention of the term Keck Science Department. And second, when I do find Keck Science Department, it's mentioned in other Claremont colleges, such as it seems like it's a collaboration program partnership between Scripps and Pacer College. So it's these two, specifically these two colleges that's collaborating and have this science department for undergraduate majors. But it doesn't seem like it's part of the KGI program. So that is a vivid example of how AI just generated a false fact, a fact that's not true, but make it sound like it's convincing with all this different evidence that it provides, without a knowledge of this or without a deeper dive into the actual resources, without fact checking it. I could have easily been convinced that KGI does have undergraduate programs, or the tech science. I could easily be convinced that tech science department is part of the KGI program. So all this to say is that I think the larger takeaway here is that AI will always generate the most plausible answers, the answers that seems convincing, seems appealing, but that is what AI essentially is good at. That is what it's programmed to do. It will always try to make the answer sound like it's correct. But if you go to a lot of the AI programs website, you will see that they have always put a disclaimer that the content they generate does not guarantee any correctness, or this is not always the most accurate answer. But as users, we often ignore that, and we'll always assume that because the answers sound so convincing, sound so appealing, we always assume that it's always correct. But that's always not the case, right? So we have to always be aware of the potential AI hallucination issue when we're interacting with our chatbots. The second issue I want to talk about is the issue of bias. So as we all know, human could be biased. This is a known fact. But AI by definition is supposed to mimic human behavior, it's supposed to think like us and act like us. So it makes sense that bias could exist in AI as well. So bias mostly existed in training data, which is coming from human input. And so these training data are used to train AI model to think like human. That's why bias can exist in AI models as well. And there could be different sources of bias that exist in AI models. So there could be algorithm bias, cognitive bias, confirmation bias. So this is a bias where AI would, in general, tend to produce confirmative answers. So if you ask, this is correct, right? And then AI will tend to answer in an affirmative way. There's also exclusion bias, outgroup bias, stereotype bias, selection bias. So if you're interested, I have included a link here that explains the difference between the different type of bias. The next ethical issue I want to talk about is the issue of authorship. So according to a Turnitin report, so Turnitin, as we're all familiar with, is a type of system that a lot of universities use to check their student papers for plagiarism and issues like that. So according to a Turnitin report, over 22 million student papers have at least 20% AI generated writing. And this is roughly equal to 15% of the total papers that Turnitin have received. Another interesting number is that as of right now, over 52% of the internet content is AI generated. And I'll let that sink in for a moment. So this means that as of right now, if we do a Google search, and roughly 50% of the content we see from that search result is going to be generated by AI. And this number may seem more surprising if we realize another fact is that prior to 2022, or prior to the release of ChatGPT, 100% of internet content is generated by human. So just a matter of little more than 3 years, AI has already populated internet and occupying 50% of its content. And I think the number is only going to be increased as time goes on. So this begs an important question is that who is the author of this content? So if we have a student paper that's have 20% of its content generated by AI, then is student technically the only author, or is AI also going to be listed as part of the authorship? In addition to authorship, there's also ethical issue of transparency when it comes to the use of AI. So we all know that when we're conducting scientific research, that transparency is required. And that the purpose of that is part of it is to make sure that other people can reproduce the same result by applying the same methodology. That's why in the method section we listed every detail of the method we use, what participant we recruit, how we recruited them, what kind of message they see, what kind of instruction they get. But when it comes to using AI in research, it complicates the steps for transparency and reproducibility. This is because first, AI models are updating from moment to moment. So imagine there are two people that are using AI and feeding AI the same prompt, but one people is asking the question now, and the other person is asking the question in 6 months. And we can only imagine you could get such a different answers because the time difference. Because in 6 months, the AI models could look completely different from the AI models that is now. The other issue is that generative AI output is highly sensitive to prompts. So if we imagine again, two people, this time they're asking the same question at the same time to the same AI model, but they could be using a slightly different prompts in the way they ask the question. And because of that, because generative AI is very sensitive to the prompt is received, they could get different answers because of that as well. So all of these different challenges make a transparency and reproducibility a big issue when it comes to using AI in research. The next big challenge is data privacy. And this is actually an issue ever since internet have existed, right? We have all, as internet users, have learned and adapted to protect our data privacy when we're using internet. So we're not gonna give away our social security number on the social media. We're not gonna publish our personal medical record on Twitter and etc. So, but when it comes to using AI, the issue of data privacy resurface but it exists in another unpredictable way. So to understand the issue of data privacy in AI, I have this very minimal visual that illustrate how how AI models work. It's a very simple illustration. So when the first thing is the prompt. So we always design a prompt or a question and we feed the question to the AI model, which is contained of machine learning and neural networks. And AI model will analyze our prompt and give us the output. However, one of the issue here is that whenever we enter a prompt or enter a question into the AI models, the AI models will always always save the prompt into part of its data set. And it might also use the same prompt for its training data so that whatever the question you ask to the AI might become part of this model and might be resurfaced when another user asking the same question. So imagine a scenario where you're giving AI some personal information such as your date of birth or your social security number, or when some, for example, some clinics are using AI to help analyze their patient data. So they're entering sensitive information such as patient information, their name, and it could only take one simple mistake for these raw data to be leaked to another user. And there are also situations where some users will attempt to use codes to hack into the neural network so that they could get raw data generated by AI. AI would simply spit out the raw data it used for this training data, and that could raise a huge data privacy issue. In addition, another issue that maybe haven't been raised enough attention, but I think it deserves a lot of attention, is the issue of environmental sustainability of AI. So imagine that, think about like nowadays, we can technically use ChatGPT 24/7, right? It's a service that's available to us all year round. But if we think about it, in order to use that service, it requires that the AI model is running somewhere, and it's actually running on some database that is located in some large data center, right? And in order to provide that, to sustain that performance and provide that service 24/7, it means that these data centers are running all year round, 24/7, right? And is using a tons of energy, electricity, and producing carbon dioxide emissions. And also we all know that when the computer is keep running, it generates a lot of heat. It might overheat, and when it does that, it decreases the performance. So what the data center does is that they will use tons of water to keep the system cool to maintain its performance. So, and actually we have another webinar that's already talked about, that's focusing on the environmental sustainability issue of AI. I recommend you check it out if you're interested. And here I've grabbed some stats from this research paper conducted by Xiao et al. 2025. And basically what they did is that they predicted the environmental impact of AI by the year from 2026 to 2030. So, and these are stats predicted by the use of AI, the environmental impact of AI on 2030. So in terms of energy consumption, AI will consume about 147 to 245 terawatt hours. So if you don't know what that means, that translates roughly to a whole country's worth of energy consumption. Or this amount of power or energy is able to sustain 42 to 70 million homes for a year. In terms of carbon dioxide emission, sustaining AI will roughly produce 24 to 44 million metric tons, which is roughly equal to if we release 5 to 10 million cars on the road right now and have them run for a year. In terms of water footprint, AI center will consume roughly about 730 to 1125 millions of meter cubes. And this amount of water will be able to sustain 6 to 10 million homes for a whole year. And that is putting into perspective some of the environmental impact of these AI servers have on our environment. So as we have kind of go through and think about all these different ethical challenges of AI, I want to just take 1 minute for everyone to pause and reflect on these different issues. And if there are any other issues that personally have experienced and I want to share, welcome that as well. So everyone take 1 to 2 minutes to reflect on your own. You could also write in the chat as well, if you like. Okay. We'll move on here, but I'm seeing some great comments and as well as conversations in the chat. Yeah, so I think it's always a good practice is before we use AI to always think about the ethical implications and considerations. Um, and speaking of best practices, I've seen like so many people mentioning some great strategies, and I'm so excited because that's the same thing I have planned for my presentation as well. So I've seen some folks already have mentioned this using locally deployed system or ChatGPT EDU. So if you're not familiar with what that means, a locally deployed system is basically instead of requesting AI models that is deployed in a data center, you are downloading an AI model into your local system and requesting it there. That way, even without, you don't need internet access. You don't need to make a request to the data center. And also your data, which is feed into the AI models, that is not going to be stored or used for training data because it is locally deployed. Similarly, ChatGPT EDU is another way to kind of protect data privacy, right? Because your prompts that's entered to ChatGPT EDU account will not be used for training data as well. So this practice is really best for protecting data privacy, protecting environmental sustainability by using locally deployed model that is not requiring resources on the data center. Also, some people mentioned that this is good for transparency and reducing bias as well. because with locally deployed system, right, it is downloadable, it is in a version history, so that if you record exactly which model and what prompt did you use, then it make it very easy for other users to reproduce the same product by referring to the exact model they have used or downloaded on your computer. So if you're interested in locally deployed system, there are tons of free softwares that can get you to use that. And another advantage of locally deployed system is that we all know that some AI models, they require you to buy a subscription to use some of the premium features. But if you're using locally deployed system, you can basically get the premium features for free on your local computer, and it doesn't even require the internet access. And also it's good for data privacy. Some of the most popular softwares and platform I've seen people using are Hugging Face and Olama. They are free, and they also have a lot of supports online on how to use them. Here I've included two tutorials that is two YouTube tutorials that give you a step-by-step guide on how to configure a locally deployed system on your own computer. It might require a little bit of Python coding, but the tutorial did a good job of outlining what you need. So you don't need any coding experience to do that. So I highly recommend you to check out these resources. Again, they are available on the Google Slides. That is available in the link. The second tip I have is to record and declare the use of generative AI, including which model did you use, which version did you use, what's the date, what prompts did you use, and if possible, include a screenshot of the prompt and the output that you get from AI. And this is the best practices to ensure transparency of your research, reducing bias, as well as for authorship. And just tip that if you're submitting a manuscript to a journal, always check the journal's specific guidelines and policies on declaring AI use, as more and more journals now are requesting the author to indicate if they have used AI and how, and in a separate section. The third tip is to ultimately take responsibility for AI-generated content. This requires you to know your topic, to always fact check, and to always evaluate before using AI-generated content. So this is best for combating AI hallucination issue, as well as the issue of authorship. I have this great analogy from Dr. Gloria, and she once mentioned this, and I just want to share it with everybody. So you can treat AI as your personal research assistant. They have great ideas, but always require your supervision as an expert, right? So AI is so good at generating solutions that sounds promising, that sounds appealing, but you know that from the fact that it can hallucinate, that those solutions are not always correct. So it is up to you, the user, to know your topic or do your research to fact check the content generated by AI, and always evaluate those content before you're using them. Next tip I have is to use AI for brainstorming feedback to facilitate critical thinking. So AI should help to facilitate critical thinking instead of replacing it. And this is one of the most heard concerns I've heard from professors, right? They are worried about AI because they are worried that students wouldn't be able to wouldn't practice critical thinking if they're using AI. And so from a student perspective, we should use AI to facilitate our critical thinking instead of having it to replace our critical thinking. And the last tip I have for today is to be specific and always check for assumptions when you're prompting AI. And this is the best practice for reducing bias, because specifying the assumptions help to reduce bias and also, as well as to increase the accuracy of your results. So as a, uh, as a practice, you can always try this. So whenever you ask a question or enter a prompt into AI models, add another sentence saying, such as, "What do you need to know to help me?" Right? Say so. For example, this will prompt ChatGPT to spell out a list of assumptions or questions it has for you, and then you can answer those questions, kind of like specifying different parameters, and it will help ChatGPT to generate a more helpful and more accurate response. And actually, prompting AI is such a skill that many people didn't realize. But learning how to write a prompt is is very essential and very effective to help you to generate response that are better quality. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I have included this link to a book by Ethan Malik. That in the book, the author has used a ton of examples that how they have tried to experiment with different prompting and which prompt did they recommend using. So I highly recommend checking out this book. This book is a very good read. Okay, so the as we're already in the final 10 minutes, so I want to be mindful of people's time. And also, so what I have here is I have some generated questions. I thought these might be useful to students. Um, but so I have three of them, but I want to just jump into any questions that we have collected from the Slido. And I want to make sure I get to these questions before as well. So we have one question from June. What about agentic AI? June, do you want to speak more about what you mean by this question?
Uh, Okay, sure. As far as I know, I mean, I haven't used agentic AI in research because AI automates things, which is not the one that I want to use, right? I mean, especially in research, research, uh, the best form of AI is generative AI because you are keeping yourself in the loop or you are in the driver's seat, by asking questions and answering the prompts and stuff like that. And so my question is, have you seen any use of agentic AI in research? Or is this really a no-no when it comes to the research field?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with agentic AI, but I think from what it sounds like is like if it's automating tasks, then I think it has certain values, but probably not. We have to treat it with caution. You don't want it to replace the research process that is the whole research process. But I assume it can be helpful. For example, if you can ask I think one of the ways I've tried with the agent mode in ChatGPT is that to help me to summarize new research findings that's coming out every week. So for example, you want to keep track of the new research finding, new papers in the area you're interested in. But searching for those new papers could take some time. So you can prompt ChatGPT to make automated tasks that every week, for example, on Wednesday, check for new papers and then summarize the result to you.
Okay, that's good to know. I think that is a good use of agentic AI just to give you additional resources that may have surfaced, over time.
Yeah, but yeah, it sounds like you know I've seen so many creative use of AI that have never thought about. So I'm always too curious to learn and like how people have used their AI and yeah, it's So we have our second question. I've used ChatGPT on academic paper and rewrite many paragraphs to make them more organized. Is this plagiarism? I think this is a good question that maybe many of us have thought about and have wondered about, right? And um, I think the answer to this question is that in general, I think as a rule of thumb, if you're using AI tools to help you for example, to correct grammars, to check for type errors, or to organizing content instead of generalizing new content, it is generally considered as safe to use, and so therefore it wouldn't typically um, count as plagiarism, but it would be considered as plagiarism if you use AI, let's say AI, to generate a whole new paragraph of content, and you add it to your writings without any acknowledgement or modification to it. Um, but I think that the answer to that question, it also depends on the course you're taking, the instructor you're working with, and as well as if there are any university level or institution level AI policy in place. Um, okay, so this next question, I don't understand how AI impacts environmental sustainability. Um, I'm trying to understand. So I think as a like just a general answer to this question is that AI is running on data servers, data centers that are consuming that are running 24/7 and all year round, and that's consuming large amount of electricity, generate carbon dioxide, as well as requiring a large amount of water to cool down the system to keep it running. And you know, well, that's the case for if you're requesting AI like through internet. But a lot of these problems could be avoided if you can download and have a locally deployed AI system, and that will really help with a lot of the issues. But if that's not, I'm not sure if that answered your question. But if it doesn't, please feel free to post another question that can. Um, Next question is from June. Answering the environmental concerns, AI use a lot of energy to generate answers. Now there are huge data centers that use power equivalent to a small city. Um, from Nixie, how does Turnitin and other platforms know whether it's AI generated, except for the use of M dash like this one? Yeah, I think that's a good question that honestly I have not looked so too deep into the Turnitin report to know how it's detecting AI generated content. I assume yes, it might use like there are certain like we know that certain phrases like AI tend to generate when it generates output. It could be using similar algorithm to detect. But if you're interested, I have a link to the Turnitin report. I think in the report they might have mentioned how they detected AI generated content. So next question is an example of a locally deployed system like to Copilot offered by is example to Copilot offered by the CGU Microsoft system. Um, I would assume that the Copilot offered by the CGU's Microsoft system wouldn't be a locally deployed system. If it's so a quick way to tell is if you turn off your internet and if you should still be able to use it if it's locally deployed. I'm assuming the CGU's Microsoft system had like built-in Copilot features that is making that, but that's still making requests to a data center that is using the internet. So that wouldn't be an example of a locally deployed system. Okay. So that is all for it's 11:58. So I want to be mindful of people's time. But that is all for all the contents I have today. I have some questions um, that I have provided some answers for. For example, does AI record my conversation? If so, who can see it? Can I use AI for proofreading and checking grammar? And can I use AI on my course assignments? So if you're interested to answer to this question, you can refer to the Google Slides, but I won't repeat everything here. And I will stick around for another few minutes if people want to ask questions now. But otherwise, thank you all for listening and engaging in this webinar, and I hope that you have learned something useful. And I hope that this will be a continuous series because AI is reshaping work and education as we speak. So I also want to acknowledge that this is just what I know now, and I'm also keep learning new things about AI every day, and I'm hoping that this will turn into another series of webinar that I'll likely be hosting next semester as well. So stay in tune with the CGU Cafe website for upcoming webinars in our spring semester. Thank you all.